In Great Britain, more anti-Semitic crimes were registered in 2021 than ever before. 2,255 incidents meant an increase of good a third compared to the previous year, according to the organization Community Security Trust, or CST. A particularly large number of crimes were committed in May, when the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians escalated again. These statistics are shocking and a stark reminder that the racism of anti-Semitism has not been eradicated, said UK Home Secretary Priti Patel. The Jewish community is exposed to appalling hatred. Among other things, the CST counted 176 violent attacks and 82 instances of property damage and desecration of Jewish property. Insults accounted for the majority of crimes, both in person and in social media. Several cases caught on video caused a stir. For example, several men shouted anti-Semitic slogans with a megaphone during a pro-Palestinian motorcade in London. They have been arrested. These record numbers of anti-Jewish racism shows how difficult the past year has been for Jews in Great Britain, says CST boss Marc Gardner. This hatred continues to simmer and uses every pretext to publicly break ground against Jews. For years, one thing seemed certain in Italy's politics: chaos reigned supreme, while Rome lacked clarity and stability. Then came Mario Draghi and heaved the country into new spheres. People thought they were on an equal footing with Germany and France. Italy was admired instead of ridiculed and was even named Country of the Year 2021 by the renowned English weekly newspaper The Economist. This Sunday, Draghi celebrated his one-year anniversary as Prime Minister. After being deployed as an external rescuer on February 13th in 2021, his term of office runs until the next parliamentary elections in spring 2023. However, it's uncertain whether the second half of the mission will be as successful and harmonious, especially after the recent turbulent presidential elections, when 7 ballots failed and in the end incumbent Sergio Mattarella was re-elected against his will. Experts are wondering, is Italy at risk of falling back into chaos mode? I have a clear plan, Draghi said evasively on Friday afternoon. We have to look at what's important to people and find answers. That's the duty of every government. It will be difficult for Draghi, predicts political scientist Roberto Dallimonte. The professor at the Roman University Luis blames the current party crises above all. As a reminder, Draghi is supported by a broad parliamentary majority, and all of the country's major parties are represented in his government, with the exception of the far-right Fratelli d'Italia. However, the presidential elections shook the supposedly stable political bloc on which Draghi had built the new reputation for Italy. The Five Star Movement, the largest parliamentary group, is on the verge of breaking up due to leadership disputes. The center-right parties Lega and Forza Italia are being worn down by the fact that on the one hand they are governing parties and have to be loyal. On the other hand, they do not want to leave all the voters who are dissatisfied with the current government course and the Corona policy to the Fratelli and their popular party leader Giorgia Meloni. Liga boss Matteo Salvini is very concerned about Meloni, says political expert Dallimonte to the German press agency, because Meloni is collecting everyone who is angry. In polls, the Fratelli are currently the strongest right-wing party in Italy with 20%. It is bizarre. President Mattarella was recently confirmed in office, so the successful duo Draghi-Mattarella can continue. But the course of the election, with an embarrassing week of voting without a willingness to compromise, shook the parties. They are weak, they are nervous, analyzes Dallimonte. Now it will be difficult for Draghi to implement new and important projects. It is important to complete further reforms in 2022 and thus secure the next urgently needed tranches of the 191.5 billion euros in EU aid. Draghi still has no fewer than 100 goals on the to-do list of the Corona recovery plan in 2021. Dallimonte believes that at least one thing is certain: the government will not collapse prematurely. And who knows in this Italy whether Draghi might not even be allowed to remain prime minister beyond 2023. The non-party politician himself clearly ruled out on Friday that he would go into the election campaign as a group's top candidate. He's surprised that he was last brought into play for different posts, he says. If I want to continue working after these tasks, then I'll find a job myself, he says. Well, however, if the elections again fail to produce a clear majority, he will, similar to Mattarella recently, could be called again for help, for example, by an alliance of those willing to reform. That would even be a worthwhile idea, said the Social Democratic mayor of Bergamo, Giorgio Gori, to the newspaper La Repubblica this week. Then you could put the populist and anti-Europeans in the opposition. That would throw the party landscape in Italy completely upside down, but it would help the country's reputation enormously. On April 3rd, Hungarians will elect a new parliament, and Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is threatened with losing power for the first time in 12 years. But does the former US president come to his aid? A few weeks before the parliamentary elections in Hungary, Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is hoping for support from Donald Trump. A pro-government think tank invited the former US president to campaign in Budapest, The Guardian reports, citing a source in Hungary's government. The people at Fidesz would be really excited if Trump came to Budapest in March, the newspaper quoted the anonymous source as saying. Fidesz is the right-wing conservative governing party in Hungary. So far, however, Trump has not responded to the invitation. It would be Trump's first known trip abroad since he was voted out in November 2020. Orbán hopes for the Republican support, and those hopes are not entirely unfounded. It wasn't until early January that Trump praised Orbán and promised him his support for the April 3rd elections. Hungarian Viktor Orbán truly loves his country and wants the security for his people, Trump said in a statement. During Orbán's state visit to Washington in May 2019, the two made no secret of their mutual admiration. For Orbán, Trump's campaign support could be crucial. For the first time since he took office in 2010, the right-wing populist power is under serious threat. This is mainly due to the fact that several opposition parties have joined forces and put forward a common candidate, Peter Marc. The mayor of the small town of Hotmező-Vásárhely was recently tied with Orbán in polls. Hungary experts give Marc a realistic chance of winning the election. Trump would not be the only brother in spirit that Orbán uses for his election campaign. Since he can hardly expect any support from the EU, he prefers to meet Brazil's far-right President Jair Bolsonaro and Russia's President Vladimir Putin during the election campaign. France's far-right presidential candidate Marine Le Pen was also recently able to enjoy warm words from Budapest. British Secretary of State for Health Gillian Keegan continued one of her appointments despite a positive corona test. The Conservative politician apologized for her misjudgment. I should have ended the meeting immediately, she later tweeted. A ministry spokesman said on Wednesday that department head Sajid Javid had accepted the apology and continued to support Keegan. In the past, several British politicians and scientists had to resign from their posts for violating corona rules. But this government doesn't care about corona rules. Keegan tweeted that she was in the middle of a meeting with three fathers who were reporting their daughters' deaths when she received the positive test result. I informed them of the result and took further precautions, but with their consent I stayed for a short time to hear their stories, she wrote. The instruction of the health service NHS stipulates that people must isolate themselves immediately after a positive test result. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.